Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight, Thursday, October 6th, 2022, our regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen's meeting. We call the meeting to order, and I ask that we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I ask my fellow select people if there's any changes or additions to the agenda. Andy?
Not at this time, I don't.
Okay, hearing none, moving on. Our next section is our public comment section. This section of the agenda is reserved for people in attendance who wish to briefly address the board. The board requests that comments be limited to 3 minutes or less. People wishing to comment should type comment and your names and address and in the chat box, and you will be recognized. I hear or see none.
There are no public comments at this time. I just want to make mention of the one email we received today from Kevin Tulameri asking that this letter and the letter found below be entered into the public record as part of this meeting. So it is Mr. Tulameri forwarding Mr. Wazika's letter regarding the Kinney Road Public Works project. And you should have all received it, forwarded it to you this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next would be our good to know or special recognition. Andy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I tentatively had the superintendent of Ram High School scheduled for tonight, but he had a conflicting facilities meeting. So he had to bow out of this one, but he claims he will be, try to be at the next one. Colin McNamara, who is the Ram superintendent, was going to introduce himself. And so we'll have to push that off to the next agenda.
Okay, great. Love to see him on screen. Okay, our next are appointments and resignations, and we actually sadly have 3 resignations.
Yes,
first,
if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Thank you. So just quickly, the first one, you have a letter from Diane Morales resigning from the Hebron Board of Education. Beneath that's a proposed motion. I just want to make it aware that Diane Morales is a registered Republican, and her term that she got elected to runs to 2025.
Okay. Motion is moved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen accept the resignation of Diana Morales from the Hebron Board of Education with regret and thanks for her dedicated service. Further, that the Selectmen designate Friday, October 14th, 2022 as the posting date for the vacancy notice. The 35th and final day by which nominations shall be received is Friday, November 18th, 2022. Hearing the motion, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Moving across, Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, I'm sorry. Yeah, aye, I'm sorry.
Okay. Gail Richmond?
Gail Richmond, aye.
Mark Rivera? I thought I saw him. Not sure if he's with us.
He's just on mute, it looks like. He's just on mute.
Well,
looks like.
Mark Rivera? And myself, aye. Mike is not working. I don't know how to count that.
We can drop the agenda item and you can see him. He can wave his hand in the
Yeah,
affirmative. That will help.
if his camera works, have him just do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I mean, that's,
Or if he typed, okay, that's an aye.
there we go.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Our next one, Andy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item B, another attaches a letter from Amanda Vinciano resigning from the Hebron Board of Education. And Amanda is also registered as an R, Republican, and her term runs till 2023.
Okay. The motion, move the Hebron Board of Selectmen accept the resignation of Amanda Viziano from the Hebron Board of Education with regret and thanks for her dedicated service. Further, that the Selectmen designate Friday, October 14th, 2022 as the posting date for the vacancy notice. The 35th and final day by which nominations shall be received is Friday, November 18th, 2022. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say something regarding Amanda. Amanda has worked very hard to get on the Hebron Board of Ed, and she unfortunately has conflicts now, which means she can't properly serve. And I want to say that she has been a real addition to her town work and her assignment on the Board of Education. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
Mark? Thumbs up. And myself, Dan Larson, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, Andy?
Okay, I didn't do the research on Carla, but Carla Popwitz, the town clerk, has submitted her resignation, actually retirement letter. After 23 years of service, her retirement date will be January 31st, 2023. And I think she just recently got reelected. So I think she's probably going to go, Donna can correct me, till 2025.
Sounds
I believe
right.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. I'll read the motion and open it up for discussion. Move the Hebron Board of Selectmen accept the resignation of the town clerk, Carla Popowitz, with regret and thanks for her many years of dedicated service to the town of Hebron. The Selectmen designate Friday, October 14th, 2022 as the posting date for the vacancy notice. The 35th and final day by which nominations shall be received is Friday, November 18th, 2022. Further, the Board of Selectmen extends sincere appreciation for the work Ms. Popowitz has done modernizing and organizing the town clerk's office and wish her well in her future endeavors. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a few remarks regarding Carla's service. As a genealogist, I've had plenty of dealings with her other than being on the Board of Selectmen. She goes out of her way to preserve all the old records that are vital to the history and to people obtaining records for their families who have been in the area for many years. But she's obtained grants to get those records permanently preserved, and I think we need to recognize that when we discuss Carla. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And I would ask, I wanted to bring this up actually, and I apologize, under new business, under any other new business. Seeing that she is both elected and receives compensation, and that we have an assistant town clerk. I was gonna have Andy kind of explain what some of the scenarios or one of the possible scenarios may be. So we can do that after we do the vote, if people are interested or want to discuss that quickly. So we'll do the vote first. Hearing the motion, all in favor, or any other discussion? Getting myself twisted around here. Yes,
Yeah, Dan, I did, Peter Casper, I just, again, just as a citizen of 20 some odd years in the town of Hebron, I always saw her, even before I was elected and had more official dealings with her, I always saw her as just a strong asset to the town, and someone who cared about the town, and someone who was always willing to help any community member. So anyone who's put that much service into the town and served with distinction should be recognized. And so just as a citizen in town, I just wanted to thank her for her years of service to the community. So I just wanted to, sort of echo Gail's comments. Thank you.
you're welcome. Tiffany?
Yeah, along the same lines, I think this is obviously a tremendous loss for the town. I think Carla has certainly done incredible things in the town clerk's office. I just wanted to point out that I'm also equally inspired by her nonprofit work, which she indicated in her letter that she's going to continue to work with her nonprofit Bolakata and Friends Village Project, which supports a medical clinic in West Africa. So I think she was a tremendous asset to the town, and we'll miss her, but she's also an incredible asset to her community, and it sounds like she'll continue to do so. So I think we will miss her in town hall. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Dan, I had a comment too.
Yes, Mark.
So Carla has such a pleasant demeanor and a friendliness about her that's almost unrivaled. I remember when I first came here, I was just awed at how giving and accepting she is of people. And she was almost the face of the town hall, because she's the first person you see in there, and you see her smiling and waving, saying hello to everybody. It's something that I know I'll personally miss, and I know the rest of the town will miss it. So what a great job over the years. That's my comment, Dan.
Okay, great. And I agree and echo everybody's sentiments. Again, having known Carla, for the full 23 years, if not longer, she is going to be missed. And sadly, this is, we have a great town. We have a lot of long-term employees, but they're all beginning to think about their next stage in their lives. And so, at any rate, hearing that, all in favor signify by saying aye. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
And myself, aye. So I thank you. And as I say, I apologize, but do we want to have any kind of a quick, brief discussion on this as we move forward, or wait for next month or next meeting? Andy, yes. Go ahead, Andy.
If the board is so inclined, I'll run through it quickly. It's from the charter, and I can let the public that's on here know, and then we can move forward because it's part of this agenda item.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
All right, hearing no objections from the charter. Resignations from elected official. As the charter requires, elected official who wishes to resign his or her elected office shall notify the town clerk in writing. Dated correspondence in his or her resignation with original signature. Filling a vacancy in an elected office is the notification. In filing a vacancy for the Board of Selectmen, it's directed by the town charter to fill the vacancy as soon as practical and solicit nominations from such vacancies from the political parties and from the general public. 2.1.1, the Board of Selectmen shall notify in writing the chair of the town committees of vacancies and elected officials. 2.1.2, the Board of Selectmen shall direct the town manager to provide notice of the vacancy by filing with the town clerk, posting on the town bulletin board and announcement in a newspaper. The town manager's office shall cause the notice to be posted on such day as the selectmen shall designate. If the date of the notice falls on a holiday, it shall be posted on the next regular business day. 2.2, nomination period. The date of the notice of the vacancy is filed with the town clerk and posted on the town bulletin board shall commence the 35-day notice period as required by the charter. Nominations will be accepted at the town manager's office up to and including the 35th day or postmarked on the 35th day. If the 35th day falls on a non-business day, nominations will be accepted on the next business day. 2.2.2, political parties nominating a candidate must submit a letter to the Board of Selectmen. 2.2.3, if no candidate is nominated, the selectmen may renotice the vacancy and begin a new 35-day nomination period. So next would be 3.1.1, appointment process. Anyone interested in being appointed to an elected position vacancy should complete the following steps. Write a letter to the town manager with supporting materials expressing his or her interest in serving in a vacancy or a vacant elected position. Bullet number 2, the town manager will contact the applicant acknowledging his or her letter and answer any questions he or she may have. Bullet point number 3, contact each member of the Board of Selectmen regarding his or her interest in serving in a vacancy or a vacant elected position. I need new glasses. I guess I gotta go get those. 3.1.2, the following may be considered by the Board of Selectmen in filling the vacancy. Attendance at meetings, written nomination from the political parties, endorsement by members of the community, prior community service, contact each member of the Board of Selectmen regarding his or her interest in serving in a vacancy or an elected position, political party affiliation, and 3.1.3, as per the town charter, all appointments shall be made by 3 affirmative votes of the Board of Selectmen. 3.1.4, when the Board of Selectmen chooses to appoint the same individual to more than one appointed town board, it shall waiver formally the charter prohibition regarding the limit for only one town board appointment. 3.1.5, if no candidate is appointed, the selectmen may renotice the vacancy and begin the new 35-day nominating period. And 3.1.6, nothing in these guidelines shall limit the ability of the Board of Selectmen to act as deemed appropriate within the limitations of the town charter. So I know I kind of rattled that off, but it's also available. It's in the charter, but that's for people that didn't know the process.
Okay. Thank you. Our next thing would be the town manager's report.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board of Selectmen. On the town manager's report, we have been interviewing for the Parks and Recs office assistant, and I think we've named a candidate. We've made an offer. We still continue to interview and try to seek a candidate for the social worker for the senior center. We have not yet done that. We'll continue to work on it until we do. Item number 2, we've been working on the Harvest Moon event coming up later in October. The reason I'm bringing that up is we're proposing a road closure this year. With all the kids, the dark costumes in the roadways, it was very unsafe. The police were requiring temporary lighting in the roads. The crosswalks, it would have required a lot more police. So we made the executive decision to reach out to the Department of Transportation and asked to close Route 66 from Church Street up until 316. That would be from 2:30 in the afternoon to 7 p.m. So it's only for a couple of hours. It's not like a day or two. So hopefully we get approval for that. We will definitely be promoting and announcing that. And we will have a detour in place to detour the people around that area for that short amount of time. Not sure if there's any questions regarding that before I move forward.
What were you proposing the detour be?
Well, whenever you do a detour, you try to use the adjacent roads or the most next means to get them around. So if people are coming from north to south, if they can't take a left on to Route 66, the next left would be Keeney Road. So we're going to detour them down Keeney Road and back up Mill Stream and get back on the 66. And
Okay,
if the people coming in from Columbia, the same thing. If they're coming down, we're going to put them down Mill Stream and up Keeney Road, or continue down Mill Stream and come out on 207.
okay.
It's only for a couple of hours. Hopefully that won't cause any problems. We will have it very well marked as a detour, and we'll have police at the intersections.
When do you expect an answer?
We submitted it earlier this week, so hopefully DOT will turn that around, hopefully next week, if not later, earlier the week after. I'll inquire if we don't have it by next week.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or? Yeah, Tiffany. Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, Andy, are you receiving any regular updates on how the culvert work is going for that piece of Route 94, if they're, on track to lift that detour at the time that they've said they would in November?
Great question. I have not received any updates, but I will, now that you've brought that up, I will reach out to the gentleman in charge of that job and ask him how that's going.
We have some time, but I know it's a difficult detour for a lot of people who take that road to Glastonbury. So I just wanted to ask. Thank you.
Totally agree.
Peter, did you have your hand up? Guess not. Okay. Moving
Okay.
on.
Next, this is an update on the Wall Street sidewalks. The DOT comments are back. Re-engineer redesigned it due to the SHPO comments. They sat a while at DOT District 2 to review again, and the comments are back, which are minor. So we anticipate putting that together and putting out the bid in the next month or so, getting the bids in. Hopefully they'll come in lower than what was stated from the engineer, and we'll do that work in the spring. So keep your fingers crossed. I know a lot of people are wondering about, whether that's still going to go forward or not. So there's no reason it shouldn't be. You guys approved the additional funding. We got the comments back finally. So it's a good time to put a job out to bid. Be a lot of bidders. Hopefully the price will be less than what they originally proposed. We've been working with the new superintendent at RAM. We're putting the RAM generator grant together. We've got some questions back and forth with the state, how to move forward, but we had a couple of meetings, so that's been something that we're working on to try to get moving. We've been told the generator and the switchgear, if we were to order it today, would be at least 1 year out from now. So that probably is something that wouldn't be done or finalized till 2024. Just an FYI. Dan, you probably can feel the pain on that.
Yep.
Item number 5, I was very pleased to be asked to attend the fire department awards banquet dinner on Saturday, October 1st at the Lions Den. That was very well received. They recognized 2 longtime members, Dave Lynch and Tony Petrone, both out of Company 2, that served this town for many, many years. So it was kind of bittersweet, and good time was had by all, and what camaraderie. And I want to tip my hat to Chief Peter Starkel, who did a great job facilitating that. So it was very good to see those guys in a good mood and not in a stressed atmosphere of a call. Also, I attended along with some of the selectmen, the AHM fundraiser at Gina Marie's on Monday night, October 3rd. And it was a great fundraiser again. They've raised quite a bit of money. They do a great job every year. The unfortunate thing this year was that Gina's father had passed away the night before, but they still felt the obligation to the community to continue on with the fundraiser and the dinner. So hats off to them. That was a class act, and sorry for their loss. We had a meeting regarding Maple Fest and moving that forward. I met with the Flower Girl, Jason Tennell, Scott Kaufman, and the Wyndham Chamber of Commerce planning next steps. So we're going to move forward this year where the location was presently last year, but now that we have the grant for the bridge, which I'll get to in a minute, we're going to look into, it's too late to try to change things for this year. So we're going to do it one more year and hopefully we fare well. The CIP budgets, capital improvement plan budgets have been sent out to the department heads. Believe it or not, it's that time of year again. So they'll be compiling that information and they'll be submitting that back to the town manager's office within about a month or so's time. And we'll start getting that moving forward. And last but not least, the town of Hebron received the steep grant for the Pendleton Drive pedestrian bridge in the amount of $493,200. And the town's match for that project would be $100,000. So once again, this is with a new planner. So kudos to Matt Bordeaux for the hard work, and the timeframes aren't getting any longer. He got it in there. We worked together, but mostly it was his legwork that solicited this grant, and then we ended up receiving it. So once again, the town continues to receive these grants, and it's a great thing. So everybody should be happy that we're still doing our jobs and getting this kind of money, even with the turnover that we've had. And that's it.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Anybody have any questions of Andy? Okay, hearing none. Old business. Did you want to start out, Andy?
Yeah, if I could just jump backwards. It's under correspondence. It didn't make the packet because I didn't have the information, but as of late today, I found out that they're going to postpone the planning and zoning meeting. But we got a petition signed by most of the residents on Keeney Road to make that a scenic road. So the meeting originally was planned for October 11th. So I stuck it in here so you guys would be aware of the petition. And I had written a correspondence as a town manager, I think along with Kevin Kelly, the public works director. So that was going to get taken up, but I just received later tonight from the town planner that now is going to be pushed back to lack of quorum, and the chairperson would not going to be available. So they'll be taking that up. I just wanted the Board of Selectmen to be aware that there's been a petition signed and a request to the planning and zoning to turn Keeney Road into a scenic road.
Okay. How does that affect with that designation? What does that do, or how does that impact anything along that road?
It's a great question. There's a lot of things in the criteria. It would prevent you to do widening. It would prevent you to do some sort of tree removal and some of the maintenance items that Public Works normally does on roads. I think just as a planning perspective, knowing from the master plan, the plan of conservation and development, regardless of the Public Works project, that area, the way it's zoned and the way it was laid out in the master plan is something that's not conducive to that. So I think the planner will be, stating the facts that are in the plan of conservation and development. That's less than a mile long, and this is, just my observation of, being in town for 27 years. My sister-in-law worked for the state of Connecticut that was in charge of the scenic roads for all the state of Connecticut. And you normally want rolling hills, breathtaking views, long stone wall, open field atmospheres. I think this is a stretch. I think it's a beautiful country road, and I think Hebron's full of beautiful country roads. But I think to designate that as a scenic road, I'll leave it up to the planning and zoning, but I just don't think it meets all of the criteria that are out there.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay. Old business, Public Works Building Project, next steps. And I think I noticed we have some of the building committee members with us. We also have our Public Works Director, Kevin Kelly. So item 8A, Public Works Building Project, next steps. In a follow-up of September 19th, 2022 Public's informational meeting on the Public Works Building Project, the Board of Selectmen should discuss possible next steps. The Public Building Committee has submitted the attached and will be in attendance to discuss next steps with the board. Also attached is correspondence from the Public Works Union ASME representatives regarding concerns about current work conditions and facility problems, as well as town's response to the issues raised. The attached PowerPoint presentation was provided on the status of the project to address most of the recent reports and findings. The meeting was well attended and much public comment was received. So what I would like to say just immediately after reading that is we have compiled all those questions, we've reviewed the video, and we being the town engineer, town staff, along with the Public Building Committee, will be responding to all the questions with in writing, and with supporting backup data. Some of the questions were repetitive, so we'll probably only answer those once, of course. So it shouldn't be that big of a deal to try to get that out in the next couple of weeks. Also, there was a letter that was submitted today into the record and also read at that public informational meeting from a Bill Wazika, who's a retired hydrologist from DEEP with approximately 38 years. I was unaware that letter was circulated or going to be read. And once it was, I reached out to Mr. Wazika and we had a pleasant conversation for the most part. And he really does know his stuff. And in his career, he was the guru and is recognized. But a lot of the sites that he mentioned in his letter were due to poor storage of salt or years of poor storage of salt. And I spoke to the person that's in the position now and has been. Mr. Wazika hired him. His name is Graham Stevenson. He's the bureau chief, and he will be sending the town of Hebron a letter within the next couple of weeks. And he's stating that I asked him point blank, after these new regulations have gone in place about the storage of salt with these new facilities and these new regulations, has there been any situations where you've had contamination or problems? And he said he could not think of any. Hopefully he says that in his correspondence. And I totally concur with him. Of his concerns are more about the application on the roadways and how the salt is distributed due to the way being a new facility built to the new standards of contamination. He still thinks how the state and the towns and the municipalities are applying the salt to the roads is way more harmful than a storage facility built to today's regulations and best maintenance practices. So we'll wait to get his letter, but I just wanted the Board of Selectmen to know, along with the building committee, that I've been proactive, and I will be getting that from the professionals. So it's not just something that is my observation.
Okay.
We do have a motion written up. If you choose, what I would recommend is after 12 years of working, looking for a site, ruling out all the ups and downs. Back in May, we voted, or the Board of Selectmen voted to move this to referendum, but the public had raised 3 more very important questions. One was the wetlands. The second one was economic development. Could we move this closer to Keeney Road? And of course, John Barron's concerns about the historic preservation. We felt it was imperative before we moved it to referendum that we answer those pertinent questions, which I think we've done. So I think at this point, what would we be looking to do, and the motion would state, is I would hope the Board of Selectmen would approve the town manager going to the town engineer and asking him for a quote, what it would cost to bring final design and final cost of the project on the Keeney Road site. That cost would be brought back to the Board of Selectmen at a separate meeting for approval to expend those funds. And what that would do, we'd have the pertinent information to send the project to referendum so that people would know on what they're voting on, where it's going, and how much it's going to cost, and how we're going to pay for it. I'm not sure how we could send anything to referendum without having those questions answered.
I completely and totally agree. And I think it is time. Every question that has been brought up, we have been able to get solid, reasonable, positive answers, and I think it's time to move this forward. I will read the proposed resolution, open it up for discussion, and I'm hoping my fellow select people will support this resolution so that we can move forward. It's 12 years. It's time. Be it resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen do hereby determine that based on extensive studies and research, the selected location for the proposed public works facility will be the Horton property on Kinney Road. Be it further resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen authorize the town manager to move forward with planning by attaining a budget amount from the town engineer to prepare the final project design and budget estimates for the selectmen to approve at a future meeting in preparation to bring the public works facility project to be located on the Horton property on Kinney Road to referendum. Discussion. As I say, being involved, I'm probably one of the few people that has actually been involved, whether it was Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, or whatever, on this project for the last 12 years. In seeing all the research, all the work that's been done, all the sites that were looked at that were again deemed unworkable, with the future of electric vehicles. These are things with the needs for the sewers and the water and all the other stuff that this site has, and that many other sites in Hebron do not have, and probably will not have, at least well past my lifetime. I think it's time to move this thing forward. One of the other advantages of the town having this facility there, as compared to what the Charettes had planned for that whole area of the John Horton property, which was to have it extensively built out. That would have required the widening of Kinney Road. That would have required lighting. That would, stoplights, probably sidewalks. This facility probably is the best chance of maintaining as rural a character of Kinney Road as can be maintained. So those are my comments. I don't know if anybody else opening it up. Yes, Peter. You're on mute.
I know. I got it on my phone. And can you hear me now?
Yes.
I keep hitting. Sorry. I have a few things. And first of all, I think one of the things that I'm sensing and in reading some of the correspondence that we have, first of all, we're very fortunate to have the quality of the people that we have on the building committee. And they've done a tremendous amount of work on a variety of things over a number of years, and individuals specifically, and as a general, as a committee. And it seems unfortunate, just a little commentary, that they seem to be somehow vilified in this process as being the providers of the information, which is what they were charged with. You may disagree with their opinion. You may have, you have your own opinion, whatever that may be. Misinformation has been spread about, significantly. I got stopped the other day at my daughter's soccer match at Ram, and someone said, "How are you guys going to approve a $50 million project?" And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. $50 million. No facts behind that. And I think in having gone to the meeting and listening to some good comments, I went to listen to comments that people had and concerns they had, because I think that's part of our job, is to be listening to our constituents and not necessarily making judgment, just listening. And it just seems like they've been put in a very difficult position, which is unfortunate. And if they do not feel they have our support, I just want to go on record by saying you have mine. We've asked you to do something. You've done a terrific job in providing information. Whether or not people like it, okay, but that's not your charge. Your charge was to provide information. And so I appreciate the work that the building committee has done. I appreciate the willingness for them to continue to do this research over an extended period of time, and the service they provide to our town and our community. We're very fortunate to have them. So I just wanted to make note of that, if as I did. So I thank you for listening to that. And then I think that's the best recommendation. So I guess my question then goes, if I may ask Andy to comment on this, my concern, and I think you're addressing it with like the questions, like the natural question that people had is, how come we didn't pick somewhere else? And that clearly is outlined, but I know we looked at some non-commercial sites, but this goes back a number of years ago. So when you answer some of those questions, are we going to go back and just make sure that there isn't anything else, any other property that has come up that at least, not that it would be an option, but at least we don't want to ignore that there might be some additional properties that have become available since some of that research was originally done, maybe in some of these residential zones. And I wouldn't suspect they would be alternatives. I don't know, but I want to be able to answer that question, because my fear is that, based on some of the reactions that we saw, if it fails, it may not be failing for the right reasons. It's just failing for those that showed up, or failure to pass simply because of information that's out there, or even misinformation that's out there. So how do we address that to make sure we're current in our assessment of some of those non-commercial zone properties? I think the last look at that was actually a number of years ago, if I'm accurate in that, Andy, if you could comment on that. Or maybe, I know we have a couple of, I see Mal, I see Richard on the line, and if I may, if you want to respond, just to answer my question, whoever is the most appropriate person to respond to that.
I can respond to that, and then I can let them respond as well.
Yeah, thank you. No, I just want to make sure I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please. Please.
Okay, so, being the size of Hebron that it is, there's very little that's zoned for this type of activity. I mean, that's pretty well known with the map that was shown
Right
at the presentation. There's not a lot of industrial or commercial zone. Secondly, the building committee, not like a resident in town, there's a lot of things that this facility would need to operate efficiently, as Danny kind of stated. You need the power. This facility would have a truck wash bay to meet new regulations. To discharge that water, you need sanitary sewer, which this property has. Also, we're looking to have public water, which this building, and Tom Fenton will answer that when we do the questions, answer the questions from the meeting. This building isn't a high user of water. Thirdly, eminent domain was always ruled out unless that's changed, which I don't think it has. We did not consider that. But the makeup of the town itself, regardless of the zoning, just those other items alone, the power, the water, the sewer, where that district is, that kind of narrows it down to the rest of the town, which I think most people on here will agree with, is residential. And even if we were to find a residential area where we could probably ask for a special permitted use like the Lions do, I don't think you have the other amenities that you would need, for one. And two, and looking at these, there was a lot of other items that popped up too, whether it be topography, wetlands. There wasn't a lot. I mean, we looked at 30 some odd sites. There's, in my mind, we can look again, but there wasn't a lot of change in that list of sites. There's still, for what I know, this got brought to me a little while ago, so we kind of took a quick look. A lot of stuff hasn't changed with those properties. The ones that we thought would be viable ended up being wet, and the usable amount of land ruled them out. Other areas that were brought up by the public, why don't you put it here, why don't you put it there, ended up having development rights sold off, conservation's easements through them. So we vetted it pretty well, and we had a very experienced planner at the time. He is now retired in the last year. We could take another look, but I believe the status is still the same.
And that's fine. I'm not asking to revisit 31 properties. I just want to be able to answer the question. Have any other properties, any other areas surfaced, been acquired, came to bear that weren't necessarily available at the time the original work was done? I am by no means asking to go revisit 31 properties. I've sat through the presentation a number of times. It's very well done. The research has been done. I've been around long enough to have seen it. I've read through the PowerPoint multiple times. So no, I'm not questioning any of that. I just want to make sure we answer the question and clearly answer the question that there isn't any refreshing of the analysis that has to be done relative to site selection, not to revisit what was already done, but is there anything else that we haven't considered because it maybe has become available or developed, or whatever the right term is, became available since the original review? That's all. I'm not looking to repeat anything.
Yeah, Richard, I don't know.
That's fine. I don't know. I just asking the question.
Richard Stein, if the chairman allows.
Oh, please, please.
I think you're on mute, Richard.
His mic is not, but we don't hear him.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Richard. You might have to go out and come back in.
Maybe, I see Mal's on the line. I don't know. I can't see everyone on my phone here, but I don't know if Mal can add any context while we're waiting to see if Richard can rejoin. I don't know. Again, I can't see everybody on my phone. So maybe Mal's not the right person. I'm going to put you on the spot, Mal, but I see you on my display.
Yeah, while we're waiting for Richard, I will admit right now that I was not on the committee when the majority of the research was done. I have 23 of the 31 properties myself, just to solidify it in my mind. However, I heard two issues. 2 weeks ago? One was the concern about salt. The second one was, isn't there someplace else to put it? And though I agree with Andy with almost everything Andy said, however, we have residents asking the question, and I think it deserves another look. If we find something, that's great. If we don't, we have looked again. And that's really all I have to add to this. I mean, we've done, we think, what we were asked to do. At this point, we're here to answer questions, and we do appreciate your support. So, Richard, I'll defer to you. Hopefully, I saw you come back, and hopefully, we can hear you now. Nope.
No, we can't.
could he try calling in?
Yeah, you want to try it on the phone? Yeah, Richard and I had talked about this, and he was very clear, because my initial understanding, actually prior to the meeting, was that the sites that we reviewed, and I obviously didn't go and look at a zoning map, but the 31 sites that had been reviewed, my assumption, problem number one, was that they were all either commercial or mixed use. Richard straightened me out, having been around since 2010 when this began, and informed me that all sites were identified as to what their zone were, but none were excluded because of their zone. So of the 31 sites that were reviewed and formally reported on, there were like 39 sites that were reviewed, but there were 31 that were reviewed by not only the committee, and the committee was really the secondary review, were reviewed by professionals, by the town engineer and by some of the other professionals that have been involved. Of those, there were a fair number, and I don't have the exact number, but there were several parcels that were not either mixed use or commercial. They were zoned either R1 or R2. So, Richard, are you back?
Yes, I am. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you, Select.
I apologize. Peter, if there's any specific questions that you want to ask, or any of the other board members, I'm more than willing to respond. But I can say, as I heard Mal say, he and I did talk about your observation, Peter, and we absolutely embrace it. We think it's a good idea to take one last look and just see if something hasn't developed in the last several years that might be another viable option for a future DPW facility. And I know I speak for the other members of the Public Building Committee. We'll definitely work with the town agencies to work on that and come back to the board with what our findings might be.
Great. Thank
One
you.
last thing, Richard, could you speak to another thing that Richard and I had talked about was the fact that this motion that you're discussing right now, we don't want people confused that if you should pass this motion, that rules out the fact that we might look to another location to place this facility. As of right now, we believe that the facility off behind Pendleton is the correct facility. But Richard, could you speak to the difference of, say, the costs should we choose a different location as opposed to redesigning the whole work again?
Right. Mal raises a very, very good point, and the public and board need to understand that the exercise in the motion that's before the board is simply to establish a benchmark of what today, if the facility was being built today, what the cost would be. It's not a foregone conclusion that it's, it would be based on building it on John Horton Boulevard, but it would give the board a sense of what the costs are. As Andy said, it's very difficult and almost impossible to go to referendum if you don't know what a proposed project is going to cost. The reality is, and we have done this in the past for your board with the assistance of some of the other professional firms over the last 12 years, just to kind of get a sense of what the costs were. And this is no different. If we work with the on-call town engineer and we all collaboratively come up with a cost, and if we do find an alternative site, the cost to kind of adjust it based on site conditions would be a minor effort. The reality is that, in most cases, the major building costs pretty much will remain as established. But the only variable would be like on site development costs. So it's really an important effort and an exercise at this point to kind of get a benchmark of what the cost of the facility would be. It allows the flexibility if we do, to Peter's point, if we do find an alternative site, it's easy to adjust the cost to work with that site.
Thank you for adding that context. I appreciate it. It's helpful. I think our challenge continues to be to make sure we put out correct information. We address the questions in an unbiased manner and make sure that information is out. And then we have to also decide as a board, how do we address the misinformation that's presented by whomever, whatever, going forward, as we go forward. Because sometimes people, speak very passionately for or against something, but sometimes what they put out isn't necessarily, based on the ability to have all the information handy, but it can obviously sway the outcome. And so I guess that's something that we continue to think about relative to communication and different ways to communicate and FAQs or how we think about public relations in effect. Because we have to, I think the challenge here, not to still sit on my soapbox, but the challenge is we have to do something. This isn't like where we do it and how we do it ultimately, okay, that's yet to be determined. However, it's very clear that we need to do something, and we need to do something proactively now, not in another 10 years from now. And so how do we then garner the support and do it the right way, as opposed to, having a referendum fail and then starting all over again? Because we still don't solve the problem that we have to be able to move forward. And so, Andy, if I may, as I detour through this a little bit, it's just something I've been thinking a lot about. Are you confident that, regardless of what site gets chosen, let's just, whether it's this or another site, and it goes to referendum and it passes, are you confident we are going to be able to address the OSHA concerns at the current facility while we're in a state of transition?
Yeah, and I have, once again, I just steer the ship, so I don't want everything coming from Andy Tierney. I have Kevin Kelly here who runs the facility, and I was a little surprised by some of the remarks in the letter, but Kevin, I'll let you address, you're down at the building every day. You can tell them what your needs are, and then you can tell them how you plan to react to the letter that we received from the union, if you don't mind.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Our biggest problem down there is space and the lack of it. We have.
Will now be recorded.
Okay, we still going here?
Well, Kevin, good for you. People only want to record your stuff.
Okay. Anyhow, as I was saying, our biggest problem is lack of space. The union's concern is no break room, no shower facilities. The restrooms are undersized. We use the ladies' restroom as a storage facility. That's their biggest concern. They don't have a place where they can eat their lunch now. They're eating their lunch in a parts room. There's no place for them to sleep while they're out, if they're in a 3-day storm or a 2-day storm. What we've been doing is going over to the fire department whenever we can, if it's not being used, and resting in where we can there. The rest of the guys that live in town are taking the trucks home and sleeping at their house. And I've been allowing that. But not the guys out of town. We don't let the trucks leave town. So, a lot of the guys, they'll just sleep over the steering wheel for a couple hours, and you'll see them parked out on Pendleton Drive out in the middle of the night off to the side, trying to get a few hours of sleep here and there. So that's the biggest issue. They were talking about the roof leaking. We've been trying to patch that roof for the last 9 years that I've been here. We keep going up with buckets of roof and tar and patching it. We patch one leak and it moves on. And I think in my letter, I included some thoughts on what that's going to cost. And it's a very hefty number to be patching a building that really, it's outdated. The building across the street is where they're concerned about the bird droppings and such. You can't park anything inside over there without the rodents and the birds having their way with the equipment. and the stuff is worth way too much money to let the environment get to it like that. Now, every time we buy a dump truck, we're talking over a couple $100,000, and you got to take care of that kind of equipment. It's a fleet that costs a lot of money. So, that which you can see in the design of the building that we worked on, room for these trucks to be nosed in right down the line, so they're out of the conditions, with their plows all set to go. And, the guys can jump into a warm truck, go out, load up the truck, and go right to work. So I don't know if anybody's got any other questions. I think I included most of my responses in that letter, but anybody else has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them best I can.
Dan Larson, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. As everybody knows, I've been involved in the fire department literally since 1980, 81. I remember the old company too, which was down in Amston Lake. And one of the reasons that building became unsuitable was because the federal government constantly makes the vehicles to handle the weights larger. And this has gone on for years. I remember our old ET 210 was on an international cabin chassis. It was a single rear axle dual wheel. You could never build that truck today and meet the bridge laws that exist today. And this is one of the things, people talk about, how did the building get in such disrepair? I can't say it's in as much disrepair as the laws, the regulations have moved past what that building can handle and safely contain. Years ago, nobody really worried. They had a break room. They would, throw out cots. That would kind of do all. It's not that way. We ended up, because of COVID, having to put in a separate building for the new laws on separation of people requirements. So I think the town has done an incredible job with the monies that they've been given to maintain this, the facilities, but they're just old. The old town building, Andy could probably tell you, I'm not even sure when that thing was built, but that was old when I moved into town in 78. You can sometimes only patch stuff so long before you end up spending more money than it's worth trying to patch it. And I think that's where we're at with these facilities.
Hey, Dan, can I add one more thing?
Sure.
There was a comment about OSHA and the concern about them deeming it safe. We have an OSHA consultant in town that lives on East Street, and he is invited to our shop at least once a year to go over the conditions there. He goes over the maintenance bay. He goes over the transfer station. He gives us his comments. He'll make a whole list of stuff where he thinks we have to improve, and we address them all formally through OSHA. And so we make sure that we have a safe atmosphere the best we can. So I don't think it's an unsafe condition, because otherwise we wouldn't allow it to operate.
Yes, Andy.
No, I apologize. I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I echo what Kevin said, and the union's got a job to do. And I'll just be quite honest. The guys read the newspapers. They're sitting down there seeing all this stuff go back and forth, and they have periodic meetings with the union, and they brought up their concerns. And I think what's in the nutshell, and you've heard a couple times today from different people, and you can now hear it from me, from a longtime public works director, is we've outgrown the facility. We park off site. We have equipment and materials stored off site. This has been 12 years in the making. We're not, we didn't know where it was going to land, but unfortunately, the Horton Brothers and Keeney Road presented itself. So we moved forward because it fit the venue. It was zoned for that. But the site itself, we really took 2 years off from 2018, and the engineers will tell you, Kevin Kelly and the billing committee to really try to make it work down there. When we found out we couldn't put it at the parks, we really tried to get the property next door. We looked to do multi-tiering with retaining walls, moving the garage, the transfer station, and the cost of doing that. It just didn't permit itself. So that's where we are, or we ended up where we are. But getting back to the question at hand is, there's not enough room. It's a 19-acre site with 15 acres of capped landfill. You have 2.5 acres of transfer station. There's not enough room to do anything more to expand those buildings while we wait to get an approval at a referendum. It'd be throwing good money after bad, and I can't say that loud enough because it's not something we could just fix in the buildings that are there. We need to expand them to address the break rooms, the showers, the locker rooms, things of that nature. There's just not enough room. And the equipment's sitting outside. As Kevin stated, there's vehicles that don't fit in the garage that we have to plug in and try to put underneath the lean-to. So when somebody comes in the middle of the night, they got to wait for that truck to warm up and get that thing cleaned off and ready to go. So it's not in the best conditions to do the job they need to do. We need to give them the tools to do that. So it's been a long time coming. I just hope we can move forward in the best cooperative way we can.
Any other comments or questions?
Dan, I had a comment.
Yes. Go ahead.
I think the reasons for moving forward with the Public Works project, at least the assessment of it, how much it's going to cost, what it's going to be, so we can actually see and the public can see what it's going to cost and eliminate the speculation, the rumors, innuendos about what is going to take place. This has been informative for me listening. I've been listening to it for a while. I think one of the unsung components of a town is its public works facility, that we take them for granted. We take the workers for granted. We just expect the streets to be plowed. We expect things to be fixed. We expect everything to be safe, but it just doesn't happen. And we need to commit resources to it, and we need to commit our support to it, or we're going to get behind this. And I also worry about, although Kevin said it's safe, at some point there has to be some liability if we haven't done all the things that we should do and invested in what we should do to make things safe and to ensure that the things that we do buy have longevity, because they're not ruined by being outside in inclement weather, and we're able to fix them in a facility that is conducive to that. So I want to lend my support to this, and appreciate all of Peter's comments, everybody else's comments. I'd like to thank the building committee's perseverance for being at this for years. And you got to be frustrated with the fact that we just seem incapable of taking the next step, but the next step has to be to find out what the exact numbers are going to be. That's my comment, Dan.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the resolution as read, please signify by saying aye. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teakley, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
And myself, Dan Larson, aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is old business item 8B, American Rescue Plan State and Local Recovery Funds. Attached is an updated ARPA project list. The discussion at the meeting should focus on consideration offering local small business program, support of local small business, and then an amount to be determined by the Board of Selectmen. So we're not, I know we voted to hold off on items or specialty items as they came in, but this is something that's been lingering from businesses in town that requested the Board of Selectmen to consider that. And I think there was some conversation around that. I think you guys should either come up, if you want to move forward, test the flavor of the board and come up with a subcommittee if you think you want to do this, or if you don't want to do it, I think you just need to take a stand and vote your conscience if we're doing what we're doing and relieving all the taxpayers with the projects we're doing and not taking it out of CIP budgets or taxpayers' money through the budget. That might suffice. So just one more bit of information that's not on here. I got it from the finance department. So the town has received all of the ARPA funds to date for a total of $2,812,714. We had 1.406357, and we received this week 923,020 for that grand total of that 281,714. So we are made whole as far as the money. It's in the bank. Some of the projects are moving forward, like the police cars and things like that. A lot of the other projects, we're getting quotes and working on that. But just this one item was requested by some of the businesses, and it's totally up to the Board of Selectmen on how they want to move forward.
Okay. I know Peter had actually brought it up, discussed it. I think I've made my feelings known. I would like to see it stay within the town. I think, we had the PPP. There was other programs for small businesses to get funds. So that's one of my thoughts. The other thought is, unless we have something very solid and structured, I think it could turn into a floodgate of people with their hand out. And I'm not sure how we would handle that. That would be my big concern. So I know Peter had heard that last time. Were you able to put anything together, or what's?
Well, I have a perspective on it, but, I've talked a lot in the last time, and I do want to add my perspective, but maybe I could defer to the other board members if they want to speak first, and then I'll jump on at the end, just because, again, I don't want to dominate the conversation, and I want to listen to others. But I do have some things to add. But I defer to my other board members to comment first. Thank you.
Okay. Tiffany, Gail, Mark?
I guess for me, the question would be, is how large the need is, right? Because I think if we can determine how large the need is for local businesses in town that are still struggling, perhaps that could help guide the conversation as to, if we wanted to proceed, what's the maximum grant amount? What's the maximum amount of dollars we would want to put toward this? So I am all about supporting small businesses, but I want to make sure if we take the time to put this apparatus in place, that no matter what funds we put toward it, that it will be used. So I guess I don't have a sense of how much it's needed. Not that I don't think it isn't, but maybe that would be helpful to guide the conversation. Thank you.
Dan,
Yes, please.
I think the criteria that needs to be put in place to determine who gets funds and for what reasons would be a difficult process, and what would justify getting help and who's really in need to get that help. So I don't see this as an easy task, and I'm really not sure how you go about that and still be fair. And I just think, I'm not opposed to it. I just think the implementation of it would be difficult.
Gail, you have a thought? Mute.
She's up to you.
I just love mute. It would have to be criteria that people can only get help once. We're not again. We're going to have a limit on how much money they can get, and they're going to have to show their need before we hand out money. So I'm very concerned about doing it. Business, how bad is how much are some of these businesses hurting? We had one business, Finnegan's, that went out. Somebody else is in that site. If you look at the number of cars out there, obviously they're doing well. Places like Gina Marie's and George's are still thriving. So I'm not sure what the need is at this time.
I was gonna also add, I think one of the bigger problems with a lot of businesses, getting the staff, and that goes across the board, whether they're part-time staff or highly trained staff. Every company seems to have a major problem filling its positions. The other thing is a lot of companies, and I'm not sure about the food industry, but a lot of companies are having problems getting material. And that's something that this money's not going to fix. If the stuff is not available, you can't buy it. No money, no amount of money. I'm not sure where the repairs at Ted's Plaza are, but I know one of the big problems was getting the necessary proper switchgear. We heard tonight, the generator at RAM, it's going to be a year before we get the product, and that's not a money thing. It's a supply train issue, and I don't think that we can fix that with money. Another thought. Tiffany? Oh, okay.
No, that's me
I
fidgeting.
saw it and you did.
That's me fidgeting.
So thank you for the comments, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll just, my thoughts. I'm in agreement. I've thought about this quite a bit, and obviously, as you know, like Tiffany said, we're all supporters of small business. That's what our town, is made up of, residents and small businesses. I don't see this as the vehicle to provide money to the small businesses. I think the PPP, the loans, the loan forgiveness, talking to businesses, even looking at the Glastonbury criteria, I agree with all of you who I don't know how we'd actually figure it out. If you look at what they would have to demonstrate the need, I think it'd be very difficult to administer. I think it'd be very difficult to, at the end of it, think that maybe we were being fair. I see, businesses have moved through much of COVID, and the loans and the loan forgiveness and all the money that was previously available was intended to bridge that gap as we've moved through this, through COVID. And those businesses, have moved through it to some degree. It doesn't mean they weren't impacted by it, but there was another mechanism of which funds were available to allow them to address some of those needs. And so I actually am looking at this and thinking about this some more. I don't see that ARPA funds would be the vehicle in which to support our small businesses the way this is proposed. And I actually, I wouldn't support it at this juncture. Now, if we get through all of, our $2,812,714, or I'm sorry, we don't get through all of it, and if there's a different view on it at a later date. I mean, I'm a fan of small business, but I don't see the funds from ARPA as being designed to provide individual building or a business support for money that was lost during COVID. I don't see it, and I think it'd be impossible to administer. And at least the way it's presented, I wouldn't support it in the way it's been currently presented.
Okay, thank you. I would say at this point then, there's no resolution necessary. Unless somebody can give me a reason or, what the resolution should say. But I think at this point in time, we're going to try to concentrate on the other types of needs and see where that takes us down the road.
I think you're right, Dan. It's brought before us it was brought before us as an option, and we choose at this point not to proceed with that as an option. And then we move on to consideration of what's presented in the future.
Okay, all okay with that? Okay, Andy, do you need anything
Yes.
more today? I'm sorry, Gail?
No, I would say I am in support of that. I don't think we need to take this any further.
Okay. Andy, do we need to do any kind of a vote or anything, or is this satisfactory?
No, the public came and asked the board to consider it, you considered it, and if you're not gonna act on it, that's a response in itself.
Okay.
In my mind, and no action isn't action.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to add that I am a fan of small business. My father owned his own small business his entire life. I understand how governmental structure, taxes and the like really impact a small business, but I just don't think this is the right vehicle to aid a small business.
And just one last thing, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank Andy, obviously the town staff, providing the information to allow us to sort of think, and me personally, to think through this and to look at the Glastonbury, the other examples that I provided, and it gave me some good information to allow me to really think about it. And I respect the businesses for asking, so no issues there. And thank you to the town for providing enough information for us to really think this through in its entirety at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, any other old business? Okay, hearing none, new business. Andy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under new business, without further ado, we have a solar proposal for town buildings by Environmental Systems Corporation, which is known as ESC. Representatives from ESC will be in attendance to provide a presentation on the proposal for solar installation at Hebron Town Office Building, Hebron Senior Center, and at the Park Operations Building at Burn Hill Park. So they'll give us their presentation, and then if you feel so inclined, you can read that proposed motion. And at this time, if I'm allowed, Mr. Chairman, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Jack Cunningham from ESC.
Okay,
Good evening, everyone. So I'm the Director of Sales. My name is Jack Cunningham for the Energy Solutions Division at Environmental Systems Corporation. And I also have on the line Brendan Smith, who is one of our solar subject matter experts. And he is going to put up a presentation momentarily. So for those of you who may not know me or our company, we are authorized contractors with Eversource, and we are one of the companies that is sort of the marketing arm for Eversource in terms of lining up these projects and putting them together. So we've worked with the town over the last few years, and we're lucky enough to enact a couple of projects. We did some lighting and some HVAC at the Douglas Library, lighting at the Parks and Rec Building, Senior Center, and Town Hall. And you guys actually won, which I think you were made aware of, the project of the year for the mid-sized project for Eversource. So we've been working, trying to figure out how to make the solar work for the town. And it had been a bit of a struggle, mostly because of available roof space that wasn't, planned to be replaced in a few years, mainly the school, because you wouldn't want to put solar up and then have to take it down and put it up again. It wouldn't make sense. So the programs changed a lot this year. There was a big shakeup in the solar programs. And one of the things that changed, which really makes this a compelling story now for the town of Hebron, is you can now size a building like Windsor, the Windsor Parks building. That building doesn't use that much electricity. So previously you would have to size the solar on top of the building to the electric use for the building. And what this change did is it says you can now over panelize or put more panels on that building than it actually needs, and you can use it throughout the rest of the portfolio of the buildings in Hebron. So that was a huge change, which I think made this a lot more compelling. So I'm going to go through the proposal now, and certainly I can answer any questions at the end. And Brendan, if you could go to the next slide.
Sure thing.
Oh, I think we lost
We
Brendan.
lost it. Did Donna share the screen with him?
I did. He was sharing, and I think it looks like he is gone from the meeting.
He might have dropped off.
So
Okay,
let's just,
I'm going to give him a minute.
Jack, do you have the presentation? Because
I do. I have another one I can put up. Yep. Let me do that for you.
I'll give you the
Okay.
presenter right again.
If you guys could let me know if you can see this.
Yes, we can.
We can see
Right
it.
now you have proposal up.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through this with you guys. Well, Brendan's not here. So can everybody see this okay? Would you like me to enlarge it?
Yep.
So
If you could enlarge
basically,
it,
what we're
great.
going to recommend for the town is what's called a power purchase agreement. And simply put, what a power purchase agreement is, you're allowing someone to put solar panels on your roof, and you are agreeing to buy the solar back. So this is typically done through a quasi-public private organization called the Green Bank, and that's how most of the towns do this. So that's what we're going to be talking about now. So before we do that, though, I want to show you the arrays. So this is what we had proposed for the town hall. All of these panels are movable because of the situation. So we could move panels from locations. We can do a few different things here, just so you know. So this is a 40,000 kW system. We looked at the Windsor Church Street Fire Station, and you had some nice exposure in the back here. So this is a 53,000 kWh, a 66,142 kWh system. And this is the Windsor Park. So this is the example of where we're way oversizing this to make up. So you'll see the production here is only 17,992 kW, but you're 151,000 plus, for the building usage. So that's actually
Hey, Jack.
a number.
I'm
can you
back,
hear me?
Jack, if you want me to share my screen.
Oh, you are? Okay, yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
It seems
Yeah,
I
no, you
need
guys can hear me.
access to share again. I got dropped off of the platform. Thank you.
Just a point of reference, those are Hebron buildings, not Windsor.
Yes, yes. So that was a typo on the one I had. I apologize. If you go back to the town building, you'll see so it's Hebron Parks and Rec. So sorry about that. And so
okay.
the next building, if you could go, Brendan, to the next slide. So this is the Russell Mercer Senior Center. And again, this is an example of where we are way overproducing. So we're producing 63,000 kWh, and the building usage is only 17K. So if we go to the next slide, this is actually your array. So this is the aggregate of all of the solar production you're going to have. And what you'll see here is it's going to produce, the system size is 257,000 kW. The estimated annual kW production is 307,000, and your actual consumption is 272,000. So what this means to the town is you're going to have 100% of your electric covered. And because of the way this new program works, there's an extra 13% here. So that could be, you could do a couple different things with that, and you don't have to decide that until things are actually up and installed. But you could send that to another building somewhere in your building portfolio. You could send it back to the utility and you could get 20 cents a kWh. So you could do a couple of different things there.
Yeah, and there are
and-
buildings in town that can't go solar now for whatever reason, if it's their roof is just not optimal, but you can use that excess power and satisfy those bills.
Exactly. So if you go to the next page, Wendy. Okay, so this is the actual power purchase agreement. So what we did here is, you can see the aggregate, if you look at that top line for the current energy cost, is 10.91 cents a kWh. So you are going to get a fixed rate of 978. So really, to me, one of the most important things the towns that I deal with is when you can get a locked fixed in rate as you look at your budgets, that's usually a very advantageous thing to towns, and it's for 20 years. So as we look over this, it's going to show you your annual bill savings, your annual PPA cost, your power purchase agreement cost, your annual savings income, and then your cumulative cash flow. So as we go down, you'll see in this model, and we're using a 2% riser inflation-wise as far as what the electric rates are going to do. That's extremely conservative, but we came up with a number of 200,000. So if you were to look at the increases in electricity from the end of the 80s to now, it's gone up about 5% per year on average. But if you go back to like 1970, and then you do the same thing to now, it's about 1.4%. So we used the average and we went with 2%, but there's a very good chance that this 201,000 could end up being a lot more money. So the next page, Brendan. Okay, so this is can be a very important information to people. You got a plaque from Eversource when you won the town a project of the year, or the project of the year rather, the medium-sized project of the year, which had similar information, but this is, that project on steroids. So really, by doing this project, for all the people who are concerned about these things, you are going to remove 241 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. It'll be the equivalent of removing 42 cars from the road. And it will also be the equivalent of replacing about 50 acres of forest. And, if you've been following this climate change, I think we all know how important the trees are in these scenarios. So the next slide. So where we are right now, the way this works is they have auctions. So the next auction is going to be in February, and that is the time where we will bid the rec that the Green Bank has already told us is the appropriate rec you would see, but we still have to go through the process of the bid, and we have to win it for you. And then once that is secured, we would bring this all back to you. We would show you the project again and see if you wanted to move forward. So the step you're at right now is you would sign a non-binding letter of intent, which would tell us that you do want to go forward into the auction. So that would be the next step. And then during that time period, Brendan and his folks will be doing a lot of due diligence in terms of the roofs, in terms of the electricity, in terms of, all the scenarios that they're going to need to put through the auction. So they're going to need a lot of information to be able to do that. And then finally, I think we go into the panels next. So it was interesting when I heard Selectman Larson talk about the delays. So that has to do with the solar also in products. We're seeing that in every portion of our business. So we, with lighting, with HVAC upgrades, with electric vehicle chargers, and certainly with solar panels and inverters. So the way we usually tell customers is, look, we're going to try to get these panels. These are great panels. They're Q cells, but there are also alternative panels that do the exact same thing. So at that point in time, if we could not get the Q cells or these inverters, we would talk to you and say, do you want to wait it out? Do you want to wait until they come back, or do you want to, proceed? And that would kind of be up to the town. But just to be fair, I think it's important to tell you that what we're showing you today may not be the eventual panel, depending on availability. So that kind of, there's a bunch of spec sheets about these behind and a bunch of statistics, but most of these panels are going to be 20-year lifetime panels, warranted. It's pretty standard in the industry, and they typically degrade about 0.5% a year over time. And this is all the attachments, how we'd attach them to the roof. So you have all the information about what we would be doing. So that's pretty much the entire presentation. We're happy to answer any questions or, anything that you would have.
I have some questions if no one else does.
Sure.
Okay. One, what's the lifespan on these panels? And how does that compare to the roofs that you're going to be putting them on?
Mm-hmm. Brendan, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, so the rooftop components are expected to last on the order of 30 or 40 years. So that'll be part of the due diligence is really picking through each of these roof spaces. We've done a preliminary walkthrough, and most of them look to be in pretty good condition, but we want to know, exact dates that they were installed. Well, not exact dates, but exact year that they were installed. Make sure that there's going to be a good amount of roof life left. The finance, the third-party finance company, which will be the Connecticut Green Bank, will require that the roofs basically be certified so that they'll last through the 20-year PPA window.
Okay, that's one. Two, in areas possibly like Bird Hill Park, and I know right now planning and zoning, I believe our regs do not allow it or they frown upon it, would be ground mounted solar arrays. Do you get into those at all?
Yeah, we do ground mounted solar arrays. What was the question? Is just whether or not we do that?
Was there any consideration of doing ground mounted solar arrays in areas that might not be quite as open to the public as, say, the town hall?
We're certainly
within
open to it.
visible.
We haven't discussed that as of yet.
So I'll just jump in. We did look at some ground mount areas, Selectman Larson. So we looked at behind the fire station on Main Street, but that's like a helicopter spot.
Right.
So they didn't like that area. And then we, if you recall, the first time we kind of went through this thing, I think it was the very first time, we looked at the landfill, which would be a great site. But the problem there is you need 3-phase, and you don't have it there. And it was going to be like $1 million a mile. So that, when they look at these things, they run them across a benefit cost ratio formula, the Eversource does, before they allow you to do them. And that wouldn't pass because it's like $1 million a mile to get 3-phase there. So those are some of the areas we looked at. In general, though, ground mount is typically more expensive, especially right now because of the materials. So steel and those type of materials are kind of expensive right now. So the roof mount, believe it or not, is usually the least expensive. But we can look at anything and we can add and alter this.
Yes, because especially if you have a roof that's only going to be good for another 15, 20 years, you don't want to put a 40-year panel on it. And then my last question, and I know Generac's pushing them and other companies are these, it's storage cells. Do these things allow any kind of mating with storage type infrastructure facilities?
Yes, these proposals don't include battery storage, but there are a number of retrofit options for battery storage, and there's more and more options coming through every year. from various manufacturers. So yeah, there's several options now, and there will be more options in the future.
Okay, and this is something I completely unknowing on, is what on these battery storage units that they sell, how long do they last? And I know it all depends on the usage, but as a rule of thumb, is there any kind of?
Yeah, most manufacturers will sort of state a warranty period, and I often hear about 10 years before they need to be replaced. But usually what they'll say is 10 years or X number of battery cycles, whichever comes first.
Okay. Okay. And those are rated in what, kilowatt output or?
Yeah, they'll have a kW output or and in addition a kilowatt hour storage capacity.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, again, that's not included in this proposal, battery storage, but it's something we're happy to evaluate if you like.
Yeah. Andy?
Yeah, Dan, I just want to jump in. You had some great questions. So we instructed them to look at most of the roofs that we knew were in good shape, knowing the planning and zoning regulations really aren't in favor of ground mounted things unless it were to be something like the landfill. But for an example, you notice there's not a proposal to put solar on the school roofs or additional solar on the schools right now because we're waiting until those roofs get replaced, and then we'll come back in front of you to add that. But the sediments in town or the solar panels do belong on the roofs of the buildings.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Hearing none, I'll read the motion. We'll open it up for discussion. Whoops. I don't know, it just blurped. Move the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the solar installations as presented on the town office building, Hebron Senior Center, and the Parks Operation Building at Burnt Hill Park, and authorize Andrew J. Turney to seek appropriate approvals, permits, and to sign any necessary contract documents with Environmental Systems Corporation, ESC, and other partners to complete the installations. Any discussion or any further discussion? Hearing none, excuse me. Tiffany? You're on mute.
Peter has his hand up.
Oh,
I'm
I'm sorry.
No, me. It was like a slow motion. So my fault. So I just want to make sure I understand. So when we get a non-binding letter of intent, it goes forward into the auction, and then the auction comes out, and we don't. I mean, sort of explain. Could you just explain that one more time to me in terms of the?
Yeah. So
there's some
we have
subtleties to it.
to bid, even though the Green Bank, which is the they kind of finance all these things. So they're telling us that's going to be the rate. We still have to go through the process of going to the auction and bidding for that rate. So we wouldn't look for an agreement with you until we make sure we have the rate locked in. You know what I mean? Because if it comes back different, first of all, if we go in too high, then you're going to get rejected automatically. But we already know where we're going to go in because the Green Bank told us. So we feel confident with that number. But
So you mind if I address something, Jack?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so in this program, we're calling it an auction, but for projects that are this size, the rate that you get is administratively set before you apply for it. So it's only when you go for a much larger project that you have to put in a bid and try to win the auction. So at this auction level, we'll know in advance before we put the application in what the value of the power will be. And so there'll be another opportunity for the town of Hebron to evaluate the power purchase agreement. Does that make sense?
Yes, I just have to refresh my memory because I know we've spoken on
For
this over time, but trying to understand the sort of the cost ramifications and sort of the ROI on it, and just trying to make sure I understand all that, because it all sounds great and then all of a sudden, it ends up 5 years from now costing the town way more than we thought for some reason, that I can't quite envision, but still, we'll have an opportunity to sort of continue.
You'll be
to-
discussing, yeah, you'll be discussing this again after the auction, probably.
And the
It allows us to
number,
move forward.
the
Sorry.
number on the tariff auction is very important to the Connecticut Green Bank as well, because there's a component of it that's a value proposition to them, and that's how they configure this power purchase agreement number, the power purchase agreement rate. So they won't move ahead if the rate's not favorable either, just like the town of Hebron won't want to move ahead. So all parties are kind of aligned so that the value of the power needs to be there once they announce the rate, and that'll be before we put the application in.
Andy?
Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does, if I can jump in. So Peter, that's a great question. I after listening to the presentation, we can modify that proposed motion to a letter of intent, and then no one has got to come back to the Board of Selectmen. Maybe you don't have to give me all that authorization in this motion, just to authorize me to sign a letter of intent to move forward with that rec auction, whatever they're calling it. Would that help?
Yeah, I think it probably gives us an opportunity to move through the process together and a little more slowly and making sure, because it's a big
Yeah.
project and there's a lot to probably, we might have some more input and voices along the way when you think about something like this. So yeah, I think that would be satisfactory to me.
I agree. I keep reading this and it's locking it. It appears as if it's locking us in for something that hasn't even gone through the this auction process, if you will. I think a letter of intent would make me more comfortable, as long as it would
Yes,
satisfy.
we can modify the,
I think that's a good suggestion, Andy. Thank you.
yeah, let's
That-
modify the proposed motion.
I'm sorry.
Does that work for you, Jack?
Yes, I think that's probably the way you should go, because we still have to go through this, and then we'll bring it back to you once we secure it. I think that's the way to
Okay.
go.
Okay.
So
Move
it
that
could
the
state you will give me the approvals to sign a letter of intent.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to the wording. Move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve a letter of intent with the for the solar installations as presented with the on the town office building, Hebron Senior Center, and Parks Operation Building at Burt Hill Park, and authorize Andrew J. Tierney to seek the appropriate approvals, permits, and to sign any necessary contracts or documents with Environmental Systems Corporation and other partners to complete the installations upon final approval of the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I like Jack, when I was listening to, I think it was Jack who mentioned the word non-binding letter of intent. Is that accurate, Jack? Is that what this is? Because I like the word non-binding, because it sort of gives the clear impression that we're taking the next step, but we're not locked into anything.
Yeah, we have to secure the rate before we can go forward with them.
So I think, Mr. Chairman, if I could just suggest a friendly amendment and just add the word non-binding in front of the letter. You said letter of intent. If we could say non-binding letter of intent, I would be more
Okay.
comfortable with it. Just to be clear, so we're consistent with the verbiage that we're using and listening to this.
Okay. Jack, does that satisfy your needs or concerns?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Andy is not with us, so I'm going to propose that motion with the friendly amendment. Tiffany,
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter,
Peter Casper, aye.
Mark, are you still with us?
Yes, Mark Rivera, aye.
Gail,
Gail Richmond, aye.
and myself, aye. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, and good
Thank
luck
you.
at this
Thank you,
auction.
gentlemen. Thanks for hanging
Yeah, we
out.
hope, we hope it goes well, you know,
Yeah.
it'll be exciting if we can get this done for you guys. So thank
Yeah,
you for
good
your
stuff.
time.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
This next one, we really need Andy for. The Regional School District 8 Health and Medical Insurance Consortium Agreement and the Bylaws Proposed Amendment. And reading through this, really need Andy to kind of just explain all the how fors and why fors.
Chairman Larson, it's Donna. I can
Yes.
jump in
Oh, great.
until Andy, I'm not sure I think he's having some technical difficulties because he's been in and out, but until
Okay.
he gets
No.
back, I'll do my best.
If you
So
could.
the Insurance Consortium, which includes all three towns, School Board of Education, AHM, and RAM, we have been working for several months now to amend the current bylaws. And we added a section on budgeting and reserves. As you know, we are self-funded now, and we're doing quite well. And here is Andy, so I'm going to turn it over to him. Andy, I was just introducing the proposed bylaw amendments for the Insurance Consortium.
How'd Jack make out?
Good, they're
Yeah.
happy.
I
He got mad
apologize.
and he left.
I got knocked off for some reason. I apologize. I don't know what happened. All right, so thank you, Don. I appreciate you filling in my absence. So Regional School District 8, Health and Medical Insurance Consortium Agreement and Bylaws, proposed amendments. So I think everybody in the Board of Selectmen knows this is going very, very well. And because of that, we want to continue to do very, very well. So all the entities have got together and it's time to freshen up our bylaws. So Donna has been very diligent in putting them together and giving you a red line version, showing you the changes that have been made or suggested. And because of the way it's structured, it has to go back to the governing bodies of each entity, which of course you guys are for the town of Hebron. And they'll be going to the boards of ed, RAM, the other towns, and the other boards of ed. So hopefully you had a chance to look at this in your packet. I'm recommending that we move forward with this. I didn't see anything that was in there that was detrimental. We were also very involved in the changes along with Tom Bard up at Hebron Elementary School. And I think it's good to go unless somebody has questions.
I'll read the proposed motion. That way we'll open it up for questions and we'll go from there. Move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen on behalf of the town of Hebron approve the Regional School District 8 Health and Medical Insurance Consortium Agreement and the Bylaws Amendment as presented. So, anybody have any questions or concerns? Wow, okay. Hearing none, those in favor of the amendments as presented, please signify by saying aye. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
And myself, aye. Okay. Moving right along. We have our draft agenda for the upcoming meeting, which our next meeting is October 20th. So again, if anyone has any changes or additions or what have you, please get that into the staff.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I know, if I may, I know we've talked about this before, Andy, and you've done a good, all of us, and Andy's done a good job in this area too, but I always forget. We end up letting these guests sit on the line for an hour and a half, and then it's their turn because it falls in the structure of the agenda. You know, it's new business, old business, whatever it is. And should we be, and I know generally we're sensitive to that, but if we have guests like that, shouldn't we somehow get them to the top of the agenda? I mean, they sat for over an hour and listened to us go through stuff. And again, it's appropriately spaced on the agenda, so I'm not saying the agenda's wrong. I wonder if we should have a section for, you know, special guests and presentations. And I don't know if that's something we can discuss at a future next meeting, but I just reminded again that I felt badly because I was getting into all the topics and then realizing, oh my goodness, we have someone that's been online for an hour and 20 minutes waiting for their turn. Or when the town staff comes on and presents something specifically, that sort of thing. I know we've done a pretty good job, but it feels like we could do a better job with that. So I don't know if that's something we can discuss.
Yeah, point well taken, and I'll take the blame for that tonight. I didn't know how long some of these items that we had on here were gonna take, but now that they have taken quite a bit longer, and if those people were sitting at that amount of time, you're 100% correct. We should be more diligent in moving them forward.
Yeah, it's not a criticism, Andy. I'm just thinking, I don't know if we should, because we don't know, right? We think something's gonna be 5 minutes and it's 30, and we think something's gonna be 30 and it's 5. I don't know. Is there a way to structure an agenda to have a special guest section? Or is that solely against every Robert's rules and all that sort of stuff?
No, we can place them on the agenda accordingly. Once again, putting it together is one thing, but when we get to it at the night, I should have, done a better job of looking and seeing who's sitting around and suggested we move them up.
Yeah, I'm not directing this at you, Andy. I'm directing it at the board. I think we should be thinking about the agenda and who's on the agenda. That's not you. So don't hear it's criticism. I just am thinking as a board, we should be sort of, as we look at that agenda, are there any special guests? Are there any special presentations? I don't know. I just think it's a board thing, not you, Andy. You put it where it was appropriate on the agenda. We should just probably as a board sort of be more aware of what the agenda says and who's presenting and all that. Just an observation. Thank you.
Peter, Dan Larson. What we could do, or I believe we could do it, is by changing things around, we could have instead of 8 being old business, we could have 8 being outside presenters on I want to say board related topics, and that's not right. Town discussion topics, or I'm sure somebody smart can come up with some sort of a verbiage for
Well,
them.
it's really just presenters and guests. I mean, it's a presenters and guests, whatever that may be. To answer your point, I think Andy maybe has his hand up, but it's just presenters or guests is sort of how I view it.
Yeah, Andy.
No, that was just rubbing my head. I apologize.
Oh.
We'll look. Donna's pretty savvy. Her and I will work on it for the next agenda. We'll send on a couple of suggestions.
Okay.
Well noted.
It's a good thing this isn't an auction. Andy just would have bought that DeSoto.
That happened at a car show. Trust me.
Okay, can you put that on the agenda for next meeting? Because
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I believe we're up to our consent agenda. And these are items that are considered routine in nature. And they may be voted on as individually or as a group. We have our tax refunds as listed, and we have the approval of the minutes of September 1st, 2022, and September 15th, 2022. I will admit I did not see the September 15th, 2022. I guess they were in our mail, but not in the packet. So how do people want to handle it?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I actually do have a change to the September 15th. Not that we have to vote on it tonight if you want time, but I do want to register that I have a change I'd like to make.
You know
Or how
what?
do you want to do that?
I will, if you people are happy and you want to, just list the change, I'll go with it.
Yeah, so my change is under old business 7A, under number 3, where it said I strongly disagree that implicit and unconscious bias training doesn't work. I object to the adjective of the use of the word strongly. I think it's enough to say I disagreed. I mean, these are just minutes. I think as a communicator, I would just say that adjectives can sometimes be viewed in a pejorative manner. And so I think I would like to remove that word because I know what strong disagreement for myself sounds like, and I don't think that was it. Thank you.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll make a motion. We'll do them individually.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. And maybe Gail picked this up, and I didn't make the note. So I know in one of the minutes we listed guests as actually board members or town staff or something like that. There's one of them that lists the people incorrectly relative to they were grouped incorrectly. I don't know if somebody, Gail, you have that, or Tiffany. I just didn't. I forgot to write it down, and I apologize.
Yeah,
but I remember that.
I'm looking at it now. We have Heather Pettit and Claudia Riley on September 1st as Board of Finance members, and they are not.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to correct that.
Yep. And then I actually also had that it was stated that there have been other people or other employees in town who have served dual roles, and that was based on the discussion of the animal control officer. It was, the last paragraph on that page. So I just wanted to again add that in. So the compilation of the changes on the minutes of September 1st would be the correction on the, help me out here.
So we want to correct how people are listed in the beginning of the minutes on September 1st. So how
Okay.
I did it is that the only person, actually, I think the only person that's a Board of Finance member is Diane Del Rosso.
Yes.
Claudia Riley would be just a guest. Heather Pettit is the chair of the Hebron Board of Education. And I believe Terry McManus and Kathy Williams were attending as guests.
Okay,
Do I have that correctly?
perfect. Okay.
Yes.
I think since Terry's on, we should make him an honorary member of something. Some board, Terry. So at some point, we make an honorary member of something. So hang in there. But at this point,
Okay.
yes, you're a guest. Yes.
And then there would be the addition or correction that, that I had stipulated that we have had other people who have served dual functions as town employees. Were there any others? Was there another one for September 1st? Okay, so hearing none, move the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the minutes of September 1st as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
Mark? Oh, he's left. Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
And myself, aye. Move that the Board of Selectmen approve the minutes of September 15th, 2022 as amended. And that amendment would be what,
The
Tiffany?
removal of the word strongly under 7A number 3, when I was expressing my disagreement about bias training.
Okay. So again, as amended, Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
Mark is left. Gail?
Gail Richmond will abstain as I was not present for the meeting.
And I'll say aye based on your observations. And then Board of Selectmen approve the tax refunds as listed. All in favor, again, signify by saying aye. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
Mark? He said he arrived, but Gail?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Mark, are you there or no?
Yeah, I was having a little difficulty too. Is this about the changes that were talked about?
No, we're already moved on to the tax refund.
Okay. Mark Rivera, aye.
Okay. Okay. Our next thing would be our liaison reports.
I think Tiffany used the right
Um,
terminology.
So we would have, I don't know, Gail?
I have a few items tonight. For the senior center, our director has been attending virtual meetings to gain information on programs that will benefit our seniors. The state of Connecticut Unit on Age Disability has received $10 million from ARPA specific for senior centers. So she attended a virtual meeting to learn how much each municipality will be eligible for and what the criteria are for that. So she should be hearing, that information should come from the state shortly. She's also attended training on the specifics of the winter heating and water assistance programs. She's also attended there's been changes on Medicare's open enrollment, and she had an update on that. The Douglas Library on October 13th at 6 p.m. will be given a class on Get to Know Your Car. It's being taught by a master technician. He will provide an overview of how cars function and more. He will also discuss questions that you should ask when visiting a center or going to buy a new car. And I'm sure what everyone's been waiting for, on October 22nd, which is a Saturday, you can go into the library and visit the Haunted Library. And tomorrow at 1 p.m., the movie will be Where the Crawdads Sing. As most people know, that's been a very popular book. Now, the Hebron Board of Ed is proud to report that Rachel Smith won the first prize in the Global Invention Convention competition. She also won the top prize, the Most Innovative Award. It was for grades 2, so she's quite a young lady. And that's it, Dan.
Okay. Peter?
Board of Finance meeting was postponed, and so I don't have anything to report there. And then the Parks and Rec Commission met. They had some discussion, just a couple of highlights, had some discussions regarding the trash receptacles and so collecting some around town. So there was quite a bit of discussion on that. Update on the current programs, which seems to be going well. Just a reminder, Trunk or Treat's on. Goes the Ghost Run November 5th, holiday celebration. They talked about some of that. Basketball registration is open. They did have discussion about some proposed requests associated with ARPA funding, and those they'll be working with Andy on those, and I'm sure those will be coming forward at some point. And some, as Andy mentioned, discussion now on CIP. That's obviously a topic of conversation now, and so there was some discussion on that. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Tiffany?
Sure, a couple quick things. So first with the Green Committee, they're finishing up their commitments for the Lee Sawyer grant, which includes transfer station signage and ordering the start of their twin bins. They're also discussing what to do with the swap shack during the winter. As you know, that's been a very popular thing that townspeople have enjoyed So they're going to figure out what to do during the winter. And they're also getting some ideas going for the nickel per nip bill. For open space, the open space committee did cancel their meeting, but they plan to hold a special meeting within a month to review the pending O'Connor property appraisals, and they expect to receive those soon. And it's my understanding that Matt Bordeaux submitted the state deep open space grant application with letters of support from open space as well. And that's what I have tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
One thing to report about RAM. After a lot of work and input from a lot of people, we're starting to train over 160 faculty and staff in active shooter response starting tomorrow. It's a year-long process. So we're taking the first step tomorrow at RAM, and we're going to get the teachers trained and actively responding. And I've been working hard at this for quite some time. I'm really excited, and I'm ready for the meeting to be over so I can get some sleep because it starts at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay. Andy, you have anything?
Just that we're moving along now that they have the materials on the sewer upgrades. They're gonna have to close one section of the airline trail down off of 85, the most southern portion, because the trail goes right along the construction area. So they're gonna be a small section of that spur that's gonna be, you're gonna have to go out on the road and around. But other than that, I'm glad to see that it's moving forward. And that's it.
Okay. I have nothing. So there. How's that for being quick? Okay. Our next section again would be public comment. I don't know if we have anyone for public comment. Please type your name in the chat box if you wish to comment. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes or less. Donna, do we have anybody?
Terry McManus has a public comment. Terry,
Okay.
go ahead.
Good evening. As an honorary citizen of Hebron, I'm glad to be attending. Just a couple of questions, a couple of things that I didn't understand, and it's my ignorance on what was discussed, but it may make a point as to some of the things that I find a problem during the budgetary session. The one question on the electrical panels, the solars, I didn't get a feel for any cost whatsoever to the city of Hebron. And that could be because there is no cost, but if that's the case, that's really great. But cost wasn't talked about in that discussion. And so I was a little confused. We don't need to go into the particulars, but just as a citizen watching things, I just wanted to let you know I was confused. The next one on the, if I could ask a question on what is it, Article 12 of the insurance? From what I understood in the discussion, that was an add to the bylaws. And this is kind of what I was getting at earlier this year, in that language like this could possibly be committing the board or the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and school boards to certain costs that by contract, and that's used quite often in March and April, you would have to pay. And at this point, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking there's a cost attributed to this bylaw that we just passed. And I'm just curious as to maybe we should know what that cost will be before we approve the bylaw. And that's my comments. Great meeting, and I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you. I would suggest if you call the town office in the morning, they may be able to assist with those questions more formally with you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other comments? Donna, or no?
There's nothing else at
Doesn't-
this
Okay.
time.
I just see the
Thank you.
3 up in the corner. I'm not sure what that means. So,
Well,
okay.
two of them were Terry McManus, and one was from Mark earlier saying his mic was not working.
Oh,
So
okay,
we are
okay.
all, yep. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Gail, your turn.
It is 9:15 and I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this evening's Board of Selectmen meeting.
All in favor?
Awesome, Gail. All in
Aye.
favor? Yes.
You'll love that, huh?
Good night, everybody. Have a
Have a good night,
happy,
everyone.
safe weekend.
Night, everyone.
Take
Good
care.
night.